good piece. Without further ado, Mr. Town Administrator, the rules for the day, let me just go over it. And as you know, I've sent you a number of questions that the committee members compiled at their meeting last week. Hopefully, over the course of the day, we'll address as many of those questions as possible, as well as your presentations by your department heads. As far as the rules, we will operate as we always do. Everything will come through the chair. However, unlike most times in the past, there's a lot of questions to be asked here, and the members are going to be free to ask them. And I would hope that the department heads would answer as many of those questions as possible. We also do reserve the right to ask department heads to come back if we feel that today's time is inadequate for our understanding. And I'd like to emphasize that the whole purpose of this meeting is for our understanding, which means we may ask some questions that some people may feel sensitive to, or if they don't have information, they should clearly say, I don't have it, I'll get back to you. If it's sensitive, I'm sorry, but we need to understand what we're looking at. In many cases, there's line item identifications, etc., that we're not familiar with. There's classifications that we know of. So I will be allowing my members a great deal of latitude in questioning today. To the members of the committee, please let's stay to the budget. Let's not deal with day-to-day operations or how departments are run, all right? But let's make sure that we address every major expense that needs to be addressed. And if you have any questions or you don't understand anything, please let's get it to the table, because you're probably not alone. That said, so we understand the ground rules.
Mr. Chairman,
you're first on the agenda.
I want to say thank you to not only you, but two former chairs that are here today, Donna Bronk and Dick Paulson. This is really, from what I consider in my tenure, a very important process of unifying the budget process. When I first came here, you might recall, there were two sets of forms. They were due in triplicate. There were more processes and duplication of time and effort than you could shake a stick at. So I feel very good that we've made progress moving forward with regards to a unified budget review process. Every department has provided to the administration and to the Finance Committee under Section Article 5 of the Charter the appropriate documentation, and it will change, as we know. But this is a starting point, it's not an ending point. I'd like to make a couple observations, if I could. First is that I hope you all have my budget message. I really took the time to try to present, pursuant to the Charter requirements, the state of the economy from a national, regional, state, and local standpoint. And in it, I paraphrased certain parts of the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation report recently came out entitled on December 7th, Municipalities Weathering the Worst 2-Year Stretch Since Passage of Proposition 2.5. And we know now that that's obviously over 30 years ago. So we are at a critical juncture, as many other cities and towns are. The report indicated that the cities and towns that they have done an analysis of have really maxed out their resources to the degree that they're finding it extremely difficult to find additional revenues locally. Many of us are still trying to do that. We are hopeful that the state revenue picture is improving. There's also parts that I've cited there that there are bright spots at the state level for revenue collections over the first months of fiscal 2012. As we all know, an automatic reduction in the state's personal income tax may occur, given that that's standard fare, if you will, for what the state legislature has adopted and the governor signed, so that that will, by the way, decrease fiscal 2012 revenues at the state level by $60 million, and you double that for next year, so it's $120 million. So that may be part of the equation going forward as we look and watch very carefully what local aid might look like. I've been in touch with contacts in the legislature, in the House Ways and Means Committee, and as you all know, most of you will be attending as I will the Mass Municipal Association meeting next week. The governor is primed, I believe, to give us some indication as to what not only local revenue, unrestricted local aid might look like, but also what school aid might look like under Chapter 70. So if I could just continue, I just wanted to challenge the leadership team, all of the directors of all the departments to bring strategic planning into the budget process. This is for the second year. It's a critical element in bringing new and creative budgetary and strategic thinking to maximize the limited resources that we have. I also will continue to seek your advice, your counsel, the Board of Selectmen's advice and counsel in molding a solid financial blueprint for fiscal 2013, which we'll be working on in the next several months. Just a couple of highlights on the revenue side, if I might, Mr. Chairman. We have budgeted conservatively local revenues at 1% below the fiscal 2012 level. And that's something that we've done for the second year in a row. We also are maintaining projections for local aid for both Chapter 70 and general government local aid. And the reason for that is that I don't feel that we'll see cuts in these areas. I feel that we might see some modest increases. We'll have to wait and see what the governor's message is as he presents that later on towards the end of the month. And once again, hopefully to get a signal at the Mass Municipal annual meeting coming up next week. We've also drafted, once again, very conservative revenue projection. We'll continue to use smart growth. An example of that would be the additional $96,901 in new growth. A significant portion of that came from the conversion of a cranberry bog into the Rosebrook Medical and Business Office Park. So I feel very solidly, I see Chairman Cruz is here to my left. We've walked that site when it was just structural steel going up, sheetrock went up, businesses moved in. I talked with the Mike Hogan from Makepeace last week. They're fitting up their last tenant for that building, and they're planning a second building that is going through the permitting process. That's the type of growth that we need. That's the type of new conversion from that open bog to a $10 million project, if you will, that not only brings important local revenue through the tax base, but also creates jobs for local Wareham residents. So once again, new growth is pegged at increased $96,901. I am awaiting a letter from the Board of Assessors confirming that, but from the work papers that have been provided through the assessing department, that is what we have built into the budget. We also have levied to the maximum level allowed by Proposition 2.5. So we've done what we can to build the local budget revenue into the fiscal 2013 budget process. On the expenditure side, if I could, Mr. Chairman, funding collective bargaining agreements and other personnel expenses has been one of the charges that was put to me when I was first hired. We had 11 out of 11 contracts that had lapsed at least 3, maybe 4 years that were really an outstanding item. At some point, they'd become a liability on our balance sheet because at some point you have to catch up. And I'm proud to say right now that we have 9 out of 11 collective bargaining agreements have been signed to catch up to fiscal 2012. What is left, one unit in the library made up of 2 members, and the United Steelworkers Union made up of the departmental managers and clerical staff. And we're hopeful that we can get those contracts settled. We've already begun the fiscal 2012 negotiations. As the committee may or may not know, you can only do it in 3-year increments. So we have caught up from the prior years into fiscal 2012 with 9 out of 11 of those contracts and put the resources in place that were funded at town meeting and in subsequent budgets. And so I feel very good that the human capital of the town is being upgraded to the degree that we're catching up with our collective bargaining agreements and making efforts along those lines. The second area, you can see pursuant to a policy devised by the Board of Selectmen, We have increased the funding of the stabilization account by $50,000 from $150,000 to $200,000. This is the third year in a row we've put extra money into the stabilization account to build it back up for, once again, stabilization for the future.
Mr. Anderson, I may introduce you. We now have 5 members for a quorum. That said, I'm opening the meeting as of 9:25. In attendance, Mrs. Catulli, Mrs. Bronk, Mr. Paulson, Mr. Trudell, and myself. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. We've funded debt service, and the treasurer collectors seated to my right. We'll, I'm sure, get into some detail about that, at $272,575. We've funded our retirement contribution, which increased by a 16.74% increase, which amounts to $392,113 per the requirements of the state county system. We've funded health care at the catch-up to the of $1.1 million, $1,180,765, or an increase of 28%. And per town meeting vote, last town meeting, we funded capital outlay at $386,114, with $100,000 set aside for the school district. And I'm going to ask Mr. Sullivan, I know we just got a report that we presented to the Finance Committee and the board that indicated that second quarter collections are on target. Is that fair to say?
They had increased to above 99% for the meals tax there, so it's trending in the right direction as far as we want it to go.
I've also presented funding for what I believe is a much-needed position that at the local level in my research and talking with other town administrators and town managers. I funded a personnel director's position. At one time in the past we had this position. I funded that at $50,000. We've also funded a mechanism for something called financial services, which speaks to, if I might, Mr. Chairman, I have it here somewhere, both the 2010 Department of Revenue report presented by the Bureau, Mr. Rick Kingsley and his financial team, pretty much mirrored the 2001 report. And if I can just read an adage from that real quick off the second page. In both reports, by the way, they pointed out that we needed to bolster our financial services areas and increase financial resources in a number of areas. And if I could just real quick, on the second page, page 6 of the report, it indicated that in terms of its overall financial management, Wareham has the components in place to be effective. The absence of a town administrator at that point, this is from 2001, caused them some concern, and persistent computer problems have slowed the process, but at the same time these events have prompted the town to look at how it functions, as well as its relationships between and among offices, boards, and committees. And so I can paraphrase other points, but they pretty much both documents say that you really need to have sustained leadership from the top down, and that includes the financial services area, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but it also includes professional services that Mr. Sullivan and other staff have given us and that are included in my proposed budget. And once again, it's almost like the reports mirrored each other to some degree within a decade's time. So I just wanted to point that out for the record. If I could go back into my report, I'll finish up in a second or so. We have presented, I don't have any formal recommendations from the Capital Planning Committee, but we're working very closely with them. A capital plan for the replacement of an ambulance at $150,000. The set aside for the school district of $100,000. A parking program that we presented to the Finance Committee, coupled with, by the way, an analysis of how do we get the onset pavilion back up to functioning as a solid asset for the town at $25,000. And we've included defibrillators at $36,114 for every police vehicle that we have in the police department. On the expenditure side, just to point out a couple points, we are working on a new code enforcement program. There are too many buildings, Mr. Chairman. It's stymieing economic growth. I'll use one example. There was a building on Main Street with a big red X on it for about a decade. We've talked to developers. We know that they want to make productive investment, but they don't want to put their money into places where you have holes in roofs and windows that are blown out, and really not up to the code that we have in town. So I've charged Chief Stanley. I'm going to ask Bob Ethier, our health agent, and Miles Burke, our Director of Inspectional Services, to coordinate and co-chair with Chief Stanley's help a task force. It's in the formative stages. We're still doing research, but I'm going to call it the dirty dozen, because we're going to take a dozen buildings at a time, some of which the town owns, which is not something that we want to advertise, and get those buildings into a position to get them down in the budget, or somehow cleared up, or working with the tax collector, Treasurer Foster, some way to get them back onto the productive tax rolls of the town. So this new code enforcement task force, I've earmarked $25,000 for the demolition of derelict or blighted properties that are impediments for our new growth in town. And that's a revolving account. I don't care if the money comes from the insurance company, comes from a property owner, comes from somebody's family member. We've got to get these buildings into a position where we can get them down and get new buildings up if we can. We've also, once again, on the expenditure side, just to give you the last part of the update, maximized our efforts with regards to community development block grant funding. We have put aside $770,000 for the revitalization of Wareham Downtown Improvement Program, which includes walkways, roadways, lighting, street enhancements, historical elements, benches, trees, and plantings to attract new businesses and development in Wareham Downtown, and to create jobs and to bring productive investment to the town. This is the first phase that got kicked off this fall. The work crews have stopped their work over the winter months, and will start back up in the springtime. So that's an overview, Mr. Chairman, of the budget message from the town administrator. I'm happy to answer any questions in my budget. I just want to say to you that I have upgraded 2 positions, one being my administrative assistant, Barbara Marcosa, who has taken on additional responsibilities in the area of collective bargaining, given the fact that we have settled 9 out of 11 contracts, and we'll be very busy working to get new collective bargaining agreements in place going forward, and a number of other financial issues that Ms. Marcosa is working on, and as well as the position of financial analyst, Mr. Sullivan. We have increased his position to really formalize it, if you will, pursuant to what the Department of Revenue has instructed the town to do. You know, when you ask for these reports, I just want to make this clear, lots of times they just sit on the shelf and collect dust. We are, I'm proud to say, along with the Board of Selectmen, making strident efforts to put the proper tools in place for the departments to function. And these are 2 areas in my budget area that, once again, I'm happy to answer any questions about, but these are 2 positions that I am formalizing as we are moving forward in the field, in the area of financial management, and hopefully making some positive steps going forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, Mr. Chairman.
Well, at this point, I would suspect we basically should address the issue of the selectmen, town administrator offices. You have wage and expense requests. Town meeting, I believe, is under the town clerk, isn't it? Or is that under you?
Under town clerk.
Yeah, town meeting is on the town.
All right, if we could address those particular departments, if you could give me a recap on what you're doing in the selectmen side, and then what you're doing on the town administrator side. I believe members do have questions.
Sure thing. In the selectmen's office, we have, I believe, 1 upgrade for one of the staff persons, and I believe a step increase for another. Correct? And we also have conferences that pretty much amount to $3,250 that make up if every member of the Board of Selectmen went to, I don't believe that there have been any out-of-state conferences, but certainly registration and work at the Mass Municipal Association conferences that comes to my mind. And just really pretty much level funding and modest increase going from 123,496 in fiscal 2012 to 131,867. Mr. Chairman, I was remiss. I just want to make certain that people understand that all the departments will be increased between 3 and 5%, depending upon the collective bargaining units. And you could have clerical staff, as we do in the Selectman's office. You could have steel workers, union staff, which is a pending agreement. But you could have multiple collective bargaining agreements that call for certain increases that brought us up through fiscal 2011 that have to be funded in fiscal 2012. So a couple of modest increases there for both the departmental assistant and the department assistant 3. So we have a department assistant 4 and department assistant 3 with a step for total. Yes, okay, so we have both those positions and a vacant position, which was formerly an assistant to the Board of Selectmen at $52,000 that is still, that remains unfilled at this particular time, for a total of $124,892.
Any questions? Paul?
The parking program, are we going to have that in place? Are there actually going to be fees collected from the parking lots this coming summer?
It's a great question, Mr. Chairman, for you to Mr. Paulson. If you recall, I tried to make the point, because we didn't have the additional revenue from the state, came a couple of days later. But this budget will take effect, as you know, on July 1st. We have a parking program that is ready to go. I'm set to get that program up and running so that we would be collecting something between there and hopefully Labor Day or into September. I can't say for certain because I can't say that we can convert all of the current parking systems and install the kiosks and the software deck and the other things that go with that. But the idea is that to have a full season in place from, say, Memorial Day to Labor Day would be the objective. And I've also talked with capital planning members, Mr. Terrell, to couple that with the use of the pavilion, because I think the pavilion can be also a draw where you can get to a lavatory without having to walk up to the bluffs. You can get some of your items stored while you're on the beach. You might be able to get a can of soda and a cheeseburger or something. So that's a longer range position to help assist in the parking. But the idea would be if the money is available on July 1st, my goal is to move that program forward. So we'll be collecting something, Dick. I can't say how much because I don't know what the construction and the installation timeline would be, except to say we'd try to get it done as quickly as we could.
I might just pursue this a little bit further. The money that's being asked for, would this be the money for the construction?
The $75,000, the lion's share of it, I think about $73,000 or $74,000 of it, is for the installation of the kiosks, signage. Remember we presented, it was actually the lot plans. And this is phase one. Phase one includes getting automation into the onset pier and the C.W. Bishop parking area, which is up above next to the park, and would include each meter would cost approximately $12,000. there's other $3,000 for other parts, $10,000 for the bollards and concrete bases, that had been indicated to and, presented to not only the Finance Committee, but to the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, the $75,000, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes.
We put the system in place, ready to go.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I know you have, if I could, been very, been a strong advocate for parking, not only in the onset area, but across the town.
Well, is there, you used the expression jumpstart, which is probably appropriate for this time of year. Is there no way to jumpstart this to get this in place so that we have it for the full season? And we're talking obviously about a lot of money here in terms of, not just in the capital sense, but in terms of the revenue.
It's a good point. I would certainly entertain, Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Paulson, some form of an emergency finance committee appropriation to get this going sooner rather than later, and doing some type of just offset the receipts back into the finance accounts, or however you want to do it, into the new fiscal year. Because it would be difficult. You can't put out a contract publicly under Massachusetts law unless you have the finances and the appropriation in place. But, if we could work together to get this going up and running by Memorial Day weekend, if that's even possible, sometime in May or, early June, that would be the optimal part of this. And, and as we've visited, I know members have been to Plymouth, and I've been from Portland, Maine to Newburyport, right down the coast, Hampton Beach. People don't mind paying for something that they know costs something, to keep it clean, to keep it striped, to keep it working, and they pay. And so, to the gentleman's point, if there's some way to work it out sooner rather than later, I'm happy to get it started.
We're going to take a look at it, but let's also be aware that it is a capital item, and capital items normally require a vote of town meeting. So to pull it out of the fund, I'm not sure that we're fully authorized. We can investigate it. We can look at it and find out what we can do. But I'm not sure that we have the authority to use it to purchase a capital item.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chairman, it's capital to the extent that we're adding things, we're adding kiosks, but a lot of the systems and work are just adding to the existing parking, infrastructure, if you will. We could certainly explore that. But I do appreciate Dick's point, because to miss this season, the idea was to try to get it to pay for itself in one season. To miss the season, we have a real hot summer, I'd be kicking myself not to get something going sooner rather than later. I appreciate the point.
I understand that. We can discuss it, going forward, et cetera. Like I said, it is a capital item. The other side is, I would hope that there will be a plan in great detail that the committee would be able to go over. I think this is a bit of a stretch compared to what's been used, that fund has been used for in the past. I'm all for revenue, you know that. I'm a firm advocate of it, but I also know that we're not free to do everything that we would like to do. We're going to have, but I'll be glad to look at it. I'll be glad to put it on the agenda one time, but I would expect that if we put it on the agenda, that you would have a full plan for us to sit and go through and understand.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me be very, very clear, because it's a phased plan where we're going to work on the onset pier and the CW Bishop parking lot, which, by the way, can be expanded. We've had the surveillance done through municipal maintenance, can be expanded. And then the idea would be to get to the other beachfront areas as quickly as we can going into the program, because right now we have people out that are working in the hot sun, where a piece of equipment could do the same thing at a reduced rate. And so it's a phase, and this is phase one of a long plan.
All which you can bring, like I said, we can put it on the schedule whenever you're prepared to have it on our agenda.
Okay.
Any other questions on particularly the selectmen's numbers? Mr. Fidel?
I had a question regarding your capital paid by meals tax.
I think we're getting off the subject right now. Let's try to stick to, we're going to come to that, all right? And the thing is, what's going to happen is we're going to have the department head sitting here waiting 2 hours to get up. So we'll stick with it, try to stick to the particular expenses, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question about the is this the administrator's wages and stuff?
No, the selectmen's.
Just the selectmen's right
We're working
now?
on the selectmen's right now.
Okay, that's fine. I'll hold my comment there.
I do have a question on, we're looking at a 7% increase. I'm not passing judgment on people's value, the value of the people in the various departments, et cetera, but that's a pretty substantially high increase compared to what's happening in industry. And I was wondering if you could explain to us why we're looking at a 7% increase in that wage number.
Mr. Chairman, and once again, if you don't have copies, I'll make sure the committee has copies, but we're following the roadmap that was outlined in both the 2001 and 2010 Department of Revenue report. And we asked for those reports. This wasn't something where they just came in and decided to do a report on the town. Both of those reports stress how woefully inadequate our financial resources have been. We only had a couple people in the accounting office. Now we have...
But I'm talking about the selectmen.
Right, oh, in the selectmen's department?
In the selectmen's department, we're looking at a 7% increase in the wage number.
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan will give you
I guess the real way we should probably look at that is if you look at the FY 2011 budget, it was at 154,000. So versus FY 11, we're still close to 29 to 30,000 below that. We're just bringing this to really where it is in line with the work of the people in there, and probably where any assistance to the selectmen really is. That was higher in the past, that position, and that's really more in line with what it should be.
I'm not seeing that. Okay, I'm seeing 120 that was approved in 2011, 459, and I'm seeing 124, 891 in 2013.
That's an increase of $4,000.
Unless I printed out my wrong copy from my book here. What do you have on?
I have 131, 867.
For FY Personnel Services, Selectmen budget, FY 11 budgeted, 153, 959.
I don't have that number.
It's on
Okay.
it's in the tab. Oh, in the section here?
Yeah.
Oh, in the tab.
See, that's what we've got conflicting numbers there.
I'll tell you about the FY 11 back in what we actually have from this sheet here, which is the line breakdown. Did you have that?
We have that, but this is the actual physical, supposedly the budget. I mean, we're working off the summary budget that you gave us, and we're looking at a number of FY 2011 appropriated of $120,459. You're increasing to 124,891, or an increase of 7%.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it has to do with the classification of the departmental assistant. We'll get that information to you.
The position of the assistant, it was my understanding at one point that that money had been basically eliminated. The position was eliminated. Part of the money was used, I believe, for Mr. Sullivan's position, and then there was money used from another spot. Or you're saying that we've had an open position for the assistant to the,
That's correct.
to the selectman?
That's correct. It's not Mr. Sullivan's position. It's a vacant position.
I thought part of the monies were used for Mr. Sullivan's position.
No.
So, all right, I'm not going to. I could very easily be wrong on that. You're saying you have an open position. Do you intend to fill that position?
The Board of Selectmen have an open position, Mr.
Do
Chairman.
they intend to fill that position?
They have looked at it, I've provided them with as much support. They have not indicated to me either way that they want to fill it or not fill it. It has been an open position for the time in which Mr. Sanjanet had left the town, and it has been open since that time.
Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Bronk?
I just have a question. Now, through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Andrews, we have two individuals that are in the selectmen payroll,
That's correct.
Shirley Oldfield and Janet Wilson.
That's correct.
And are these numbers that are assigned to them, are they correct numbers? We have 124,891.
That's correct. But that includes also the open position. So there are actually 3 positions. The vacant assistant to the,
The $52,000,
that's correct.
okay.
And then, I prefer not to use names if we'd be...
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, okay.
So we have a department assistant at 37,654,
Mhm.
and we have a department assistant 4 at 37,654, and department assistant 3 at 35,236. For a total of, in that column, for those 2 individuals that are physically in the office, 72,891. And the thinking there, Mr. Chairman, was that, once again, not to keep citing the reports, but Ms. Oldfield, I've done it again. The Department Assistant 4 has had more time in service, and I think it's important to have a chain of command from, top to bottom, so that if individuals aren't in the office, work would continue in such a way that would reflect what the Board of Selectmen would like to see. So if you take that 72 and change, Donna, through you, Mr. Chairman, and add the 52 in, you come up with the 124, 892.
All right, you'll get back to us as to why the 7% increase compared to last year's appropriation of $124.59 for wages, right?
Happy to, Mr. Chairman.
We could have a breakdown on that. I think we need to address with the select. I'm sorry, Mrs. Pizzoli.
I just wanted to ask one question, and that is, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the town administrator, do you feel as the town administrator that we need an assistant to the selectmen? I hate to put you on the spot, but...
What time do you have? So, okay, it's almost 10 o'clock. It's a very, very good question. And I think what we've done, I know what we've done, is we've huddled, I just left the staff, the Board of Selectmen met into the evening to 11:30 last evening. We went over every part of what the board had asked to be done. We do that every week. So we have been functioning without a department assistant that staff has picked up. So basically, office staff plus Mr. Sullivan, myself, Ms. Marcosa, Ms. Green. See, I'm using names again. I asked Donna not to use the names. All the other staff, I'll say, have pitched in to see if we needed to, if we could get through. And in my humble opinion, we have done pretty well. Anything that the Board of Selectmen has asked for, committees have asked for instance, the Department Assistant 4 handles the agenda, all the supplemental documentation, any other things that have to go into the board packet, working with the chairman, myself. This Department Assistant 3 works on boards, commissions, appointments that are part of the agenda, but that's a whole separate bailiwick, keeping that all straight with the clerk of the Board of Selectmen. So it's been kind of a cross-functional, fertilization, if that's the right term, to let the staff do their thing. And I can't say we've been hindered. I'll have to say that to you, because we've worked through that process. But it certainly is up to the Board of Selectmen to say to the town administrator, hey, we'd like to have a assistant do whatever, tons of research or do some other stuff, and the position would be there for them to use it. It was never eliminated, it's been there, but we've been getting through it by working very, very closely and cooperatively.
May I have a follow-up?
Pardon?
May I have a
Sure.
follow-up? So basically what you're telling me is that the selectman's office and the town administrator's office, those two staffs have been working in coordination to get the job done that this person would fill, is that right?
You are correct. And if I could just one sentence on that. When I first came here, they were on opposite sides of the universe, which doesn't make any sense to me. One was on one side of the world, down with the planning offices, and one was in Sleepy Hollow, we'll just call it that, down where I am. And it doesn't make any sense to keep, to have them polarized. It makes sense to have them work together as closely as you can. And then, of course, I have other duties and responsibilities, and the chairman of the board and the board have their own responsibilities. But I think working together would not only maximize our resources, but also the space that we have.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Brunk?
I just have one more comment, Mr. Andrews, and that $52,000 position that we're leaving vacant, we're leaving that money in, I have a problem with that because you guys have been working very closely and very well with it in these economic times. And I look at all the other budgets and like the Treasurer's Department, we're cutting, where there's no increases, and that's where we generate our cash to get more money. So I have a real problem keeping a $52,000 position in an administrative position when we're cutting in areas that are also very desperate. I think we're sending the wrong message to the other folks. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just go quick. I don't disagree, Donna, but I'll say this to you. When you hear the overall plan for what I have for the Treasurer's Department, including the financial services stipend, I think you have a better picture, so if you could just reserve
Sure.
at this point.
Sure.
Hey, you know what? We've gone with, they tell me years ago we had a chief procurement officer, not here anymore. We used to have a personnel director, not here anymore. So we've done what we could to pick up what we needed to. We didn't slow down on procuring, we didn't slow down on people issues, so your point is well taken. I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen, I can speak for the town administrator, and as I've indicated to Bonnie, that I feel we've worked together to put the agenda together. Hopefully there won't be too many 11:30 meetings in the future, but we've tried to make it work efficiently and effectively with the staff that we've had. But I do appreciate your point.
And you have brought in young professional help that you can start them up the ladder, which,
Who might that
to
be?
Dick Paulson's point of view and all of us, bring some young people in and pay them less, and you'll get good quality folks to work up.
I've heard that before, and it's a very good, it's a solid accent. But I'm not sure what young people you're referring to.
I'm referring to Garrett.
Okay.
A lot younger when I started.
We're gonna have to do before and after like they did with the president, Mr. Chairman.
One quick last question on
Sure.
on the assistant position. Is that union or non-union?
You know, Derek just mentioned that it was under contract, but I believe it is a unionized position.
It is a union
We'll have to check
position?
with the steelwork, we'll have to check with the steelworkers list.
Okay, fine. Can we move on? Any other questions on the selectmen's side? Pardon?
I just, can I ask a question?
Sure, if it's about the selectmen's.
Well, it actually is. So, was this in the 2012 budget, the assistant to the selectman?
That's correct.
Have we used it for anything at all?
It's been a vacant position since the individual left
I know,
us.
but we haven't used the money for it for anything.
We have just recently hired a part-time person to help us do some typing and some word processing from that position. When the board fell behind in its minutes and we needed to catch up, that's been the extent of it.
Was that a temporary hire, or was that a?
Temporary.
Okay, that's that.
Just to get caught up, Larry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
No further questions on the town administrator's side? Very quickly. Are there any questions on the town administrator's wages or expenses?
My only comment is that they've gone up and other folks haven't gone up.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I try to stress this in the beginning, and you're going to find it throughout the budget. As we settled the collective bargaining agreements for individuals, and some people are hitting steps, you should have a worksheet that describes that for you, for both the individuals that work with me, and once again, I'm formalizing the financial analyst position into an area that I believe is supported, and then you have once again projections. It may not come to fruition, but my contract needs to be, we have to put in the appropriate dollars to cover the projected costs for the town administrator's contract, and unless I'm it's pursuant to those steps that are listed on your sheet. I hope you have. If you don't have it, we'll get it for you. And once again, contractual obligated items that are projections. Doesn't mean we're going to spend the entire amount. They're projections that need to be set aside.
Any other questions, Mr. Pizzarelli?
Just quick verification of your, the $25,000 financial services stipend?
Yes.
So that'll be carried into the town administrator's budget, am I correct in that?
No, it will be dispersed through the treasurer collector's area.
I'm a little confused.
Where does the stipend fit in? I think that's one of our biggest questions.
The stipend is devised to, once again, get to the nitty-gritty of what the Department of Revenue has asked us to do. In most cities and towns, you have a financial services director that serves between and above the treasurer collector and the town accountant. We haven't had that position, and it was referenced back over a decade ago, Mr. Chairman. So when Mr. Foster comes up here, you might start to blush a little bit. I'm going to ask him to take on some new and different responsibilities as it relates to financial services between the new town accountant and his area. And we have a plan for that. So if I could just ask, beg the indulgence of the committee, we'll get into it in a minute or so as soon as we're done with my budget.
Can I ask one more?
Yes.
And maybe this is more of a general question, but it has to do with that as well. Are you going to ask something, Dick? I didn't.
No.
Collective bargaining agreements. I guess it'd be easier to ask, how many positions in this town are not union positions? That's probably an easier step for me, because I'm looking and...
3.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Town administrator.
Instead of saying how many are, it's easier to say how many aren't.
Which three? Town administrator?
Town accountant and the police chief.
I thought the town accountant was.
No.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Then maybe we should move on. We